We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Family Secrets. Mason Reed stood behind the yellow police tape, his focus entirely on the third-floor apartment window where James Martinez held his wife and 2 children at gunpoint. Through his earpiece, he could hear the man's ragged breathing and occasional threats. "I just want them to understand," Martinez sobbed into the phone. "They can't take my kids away from me." "I hear you, James," Mason said, keeping his voice steady. "No one's taking your children anywhere right now. We're just talking, you and me." He gestured for the SWAT team to hold their positions, knowing one wrong move could trigger disaster. Behind him, Captain Williams paced nervously. "Clock's ticking, Reed. If he starts getting more agitated." Mason held up his hand, silencing his superior. He'd learned to read the subtle shifts in a person's voice during his years bouncing between foster homes. Right now, Martinez wasn't angry. He was terrified. "Remember when we talked about Tommy's baseball game last week?" Mason continued, referring to the man's son. "You said he hit his first home run, but he can't wait for you to teach him more tricks." A pause. "Then, he's getting really good. Better than I was at his age. Kids need their father, James. Your children need you there to see all those moments. To teach them, guide them. But right now, they're scared. You don't want that to be their memory of you, do you?" The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Mason could feel the tension from the assembled officers. The media crews kept at bay a block away, the neighbors watching from behind their curtains. But he kept his attention solely on the apartment window and the frightened family inside. Finally, Martinez's voice cracked. I don't want to hurt them. I never wanted." "I know you don't. You're a good father who's going through a rough time. Let's work this out together. Your kids need to see that their dad knows how to handle tough situations. Show them now." The sound of a gun being placed on a table came through clearly. In the background, Mason could hear Mrs. Martinez's muffled sobs of relief. "That's good, James. Now, I want you to hug your children, tell them you love them, and then walk to the door with your hands where we can see them. Can you do that for me?" Yeah, okay." 20 minutes later, Mason watched as social services took charge of the children while their parents were separated for questioning. Mrs. Martinez caught his eye and mouthed, "Thank you," before being led away by a detective. "Another masterclass in negotiation," Captain Williams said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Seriously, Reed, how do you do it?" Mason gathered his equipment, his mind already drifting to the empty house waiting for him. "People show you who they are if you pay attention. Everyone has a breaking point. You just need to know where to push. Well, whatever your secret is, it works. Take the rest of the day off. You've earned it." The drive home gave Mason too much time to think. The Martinez case had hit closer to home than he cared to admit. Another family on the brink of destruction. He'd seen that pattern 12 times over in his childhood, watching foster parents' marriages crumble under the weight of secrets and lies. His own marriage to Diana had seemed different. Their meeting in the emergency room 6 years ago felt like destiny. Him bleeding from a hostage negotiation gone wrong. Her, as the trauma surgeon who refused to let him die. They'd bonded over their shared mission of saving lives, understanding the toll their professions took, supporting each other through the nightmares and triumphs. But lately, the signs had become impossible to ignore. Mason pulled into their driveway, noting Diana's car was missing again despite her shift supposedly ending hours ago. Inside, the house held the sterile emptiness of a museum rather than a home. He went through his post-work routine mechanically, checking the mail, brewing coffee, reviewing case notes. The sound of his phone buzzing broke the silence. "Reed? Mason, it's Sarah." His partner's voice held an edge he rarely heard. "Got a minute? What's wrong? Remember that gym owner you asked me to look into? Marcus Thompson." Mason's hand tightened on his coffee mug. "Elite performance, right?" "Yeah. I've been digging, and something's not right. 3 of his competitors died in accidents last year. All ruled unrelated, but the timing's suspicious. Let me guess, no solid proof? Nothing that would stick in court. He got friends in high places." Sarah paused, and Mason could hear her internal debate. "There's something else. I saw Diana yesterday. The coffee turned bitter in his mouth. At the hospital? No. She was leaving elite performance. And Mason, she wasn't there to exercise. Mason set his mug down carefully, his mind already cataloging the pieces. Diana's mysterious schedule changes. The hidden phone he'd found in their bathroom vent, the expensive gifts she claimed came from grateful patients, her sudden fascination with Maldivian culture and travel guides. The key he discovered in her scrubs during laundry that matched no lock in their house. Tell me everything you saw. As Sarah detailed her observations, Mason moved through the house, seeing it with new eyes. Diana's home office held a stack of medical journals, and beneath them, printouts about international medical tourism. Her laptop was password protected, but the tablet they shared remained logged into their joint email. In her closet, shopping bags from luxury boutiques held items she'd never worn in his presence. I hate being right about this, Sarah finished. What are you going to do? Mason stared at the framed photo on their bedroom wall, and Diana on their wedding day, both beaming at the camera. Now he noticed how her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm going to do what I do best, Sarah. I'm going to find out exactly where to push. After hanging up, Mason sat in the growing darkness of his home office, piecing together the puzzle of his unraveling marriage. Each new revelation felt like another shard of glass under his skin, but he forced himself to examine them objectively, the way he would approach a hostage situation. Diana's behavior had shifted gradually over the past 8 months. First came the schedule changes, extra shifts that didn't appear on the hospital rotation he occasionally checked. Then the gym membership at Elite Performance, despite their fully equipped home gym. The calls that ended abruptly when he entered a room, the designer clothes appearing in her closet, the whispered conversations she claimed were about patient care. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos from recent hospital functions. Diana appeared in several, talking with colleagues. But in the background of one image, Mason spotted a familiar face. Marcus Thompson, owner of Elite Performance, speaking with the hospital board chairman. A quick internet search revealed Thompson's impressive public facade. Successful businessman, philanthropist, fitness guru to Chicago's elite. But Mason had learned early in life that the brighter the surface, the darker the shadows it cast. He opened his laptop and began searching news archives, police records, and court documents. The pattern emerged slowly but unmistakably. Thompson's rise to success left a trail of destroyed lives in its wake. 5 rival gym owners who mysteriously lost their licenses. 3 former business partners who filed for bankruptcy. An ex-wife who disappeared after filing for divorce. Multiple sexual harassment cases settled quietly. Most disturbing was the absence. Thompson's daughter, Sophia, who vanished from public view 10 years ago. No social media presence. No mentions in society columns, as if she'd been erased. Mason's phone buzzed again. A text from Diana. Emergency surgery. Don't wait up. He checked the hospital's surgery schedule through his police department access. No emergency procedures were listed under Diana's name. The house creaked and settled around him as Mason continued his research deep into the night. By morning, he had the outline of a plan forming in his mind. Diana had inadvertently taught him the most crucial lesson of all. Sometimes the best way to save lives was to carefully, precisely destroy them first. The next day, while Diana was supposedly at the hospital, Mason met with a private investigator he trusted from previous cases. I need everything, he told the investigator, sliding across an envelope of cash. Their meetings, their conversations, their plans. Everything they think is hidden. This kind of surveillance isn't cheap, the investigator warned. Money won't be an issue. Mason smiled grimly. After all, I'm about to fund my wife's dream vacation. Chapter 2. The Perfect Plan. The aging diner on Chicago's South Side had seen better days, but it served Mason's purposes perfectly. From his booth in the corner, he could observe every entrance while remaining partially hidden behind a dying potted plant. The coffee was terrible, but gave his hand something to do while he waited. The bell above the door chimed, and Sophia Thompson entered, her shoulders hunched against an imaginary weight. Even after 10 years, she carried herself like someone expecting a blow. Mason recognized that posture. He'd seen it in countless abuse victims during his career. "Mr. Reed," her voice was barely above a whisper as she slid into the booth. "I almost didn't come. Thank you for trusting me enough to meet," Mason said, pushing a fresh cup of coffee toward her. "I know it couldn't have been easy." Sophia wrapped her hands around the cup but didn't drink. "Why did you find me? After all this time?" "Because I need to understand who Marcus Thompson really is. And you're the only person who knows the truth." Her laugh held no humor. "The truth? Which version? The one where he's the successful businessman? The caring father? The philanthropist?" Her fingers tightened on the cup. "Or the one where he systematically destroyed my mother's life, piece by piece, until there was nothing left?" Mason kept his voice gentle. "Tell me about your mother." Sophia's story spilled out between sips of cooling coffee. Her mother's gradual descent into paranoia as Marcus gaslighted her, making her question her own sanity. The planted drugs that led to her arrest. The witnesses who mysteriously appeared at the custody hearing, telling elaborate lies about her mental state and fitness as a parent. "He didn't just abandon us," Sophia said, her hands shaking so badly she had to set down her cup. "He orchestrated Mom's complete destruction, made sure she lost everything, her reputation, her friends, her career. When she tried to fight for custody of me, he paid people to lie in court, said she was unstable, dangerous. Where is she now?" "Dead." Sophia's voice cracked. "Overdose, 3 years ago." Everyone assumed it proved what he'd said about her all along. No one questioned why a woman afraid of medications would suddenly take that much. Mason let the silence stretch, giving her time to compose herself. Finally, he asked, "Why did you agree to meet me?" Sophia pulled out her phone, scrolling through news articles. "Because I've been watching you," Mason Reed, Chicago PD's top hostage negotiator, known for solving impossible situations. "And now your wife is involved with my father." She met his eyes. "I want to help you destroy him." The meeting with Sophia confirmed Mason's suspicions and strengthened his resolve. Over the next few weeks, he built his trap with the same patience he used in hostage negotiations, laying each piece. Dr. Rachel Chun, Diana's colleague in the trauma unit, proved an unexpected ally. Mason cultivated their friendship slowly, starting with casual conversations when he dropped by the hospital. "I'm worried about Diana," he confided during one of their coffee breaks. "She seems stressed lately. Has she mentioned anything to you?" Rachel's hesitation told him everything. I shouldn't say anything. Please. If something's wrong, I need to know." Rachel glanced around the empty doctor's lounge before lowering her voice. "She's been writing prescriptions. Says they're for terminal patients, but I've tracked where the medications are going. They all lead back to elite performance." Mason feigned shock while mentally adding another piece to his puzzle. "The gym? Why would?" "I don't know," Rachel interrupted. "But Mason, these aren't normal prescriptions. Some of these drugs, they're restricted, controlled. If anyone found out." He reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Thank you for telling me. I know how hard that must have been." Rachel's information opened new avenues of investigation. Mason used his police connections to access prescription records, building a paper trail that linked Diana's prescriptions to Thompson's gym. He invested in property adjacent to Marcus's planned expansion, using shell companies to hide his involvement. Through his network of foster care contacts, he located others who had crossed paths with Marcus, former employees, disgruntled clients, ruined competitors. The evidence mounted in encrypted files on his laptop. Weekly meetings between Diana and Marcus at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Joint viewings of medical office spaces in the Gold Coast District. Diana accessing restricted hospital areas long after her shifts ended. Large transfers from Marcus's accounts to offshore banks. Detailed plans for their wellness center venture. Mason planted GPS trackers in Diana's car and personal items, documenting every unexplained absence and lie. He retrieved security footage from their meeting spots, photographed their hotel encounters, gained access to Diana's personal email through their shared tablet. Most damning was the recording he obtained during what Diana thought was a normal dinner at home. Mason had carefully steered the conversation toward their future, watching as she grew increasingly agitated. "I can't do this anymore," she'd finally snapped. "This life, this marriage, it's suffocating me." "You're suffocating me." The words hurt less than he'd expected, perhaps because he'd already accepted the truth long before she spoke it. By the time he suggested the Maldives vacation, Diana's dream destination, all the pieces were in place. He watched her face light up with poorly concealed triumph as she accepted, never suspecting she was walking into a trap of her own making. The final phase required perfect timing. Mason coordinated with Dr. Chun, who agreed to book the same flight. He arranged for 3 undercover FBI agents to pose as tourists, briefed his private investigator on documenting everything, and called in a favor from a customs agent who owed him for saving his daughter during a school shooting. Their tampered passports would ensure a secondary screening, buying precious time for the rest of his plan to unfold. Diana had already transferred her hospital shares to Marcus, signed a lease on their wellness center, and resigned from her position. Marcus had liquidated several legitimate assets, preparing for their new life together. To complete the illusion of his breakdown, Mason began displaying signs of emotional instability at work. He called in sick for the first time in his career, showed uncharacteristic agitation during briefings, and made an appointment with the department psychiatrist. "Take some time," Captain Williams urged during their private meeting. "No one would blame you after what you did." Mason accepted the captain's sympathy with apparent gratitude, all while setting his final pieces in motion. The night before Diana's flight, he made one last call. "Everything's ready?" he asked Sophia. "They won't know what hit them," she replied, her voice as cold as the Chicago winter. Mason hung up and walked through his empty house, past the spaces where family photos once hung, beyond the closed door of Diana's home office. Tomorrow, she would leave for what she thought was her dream vacation with her lover. Instead, she was about to discover the true cost of betrayal. In the darkness of his study, Mason allowed himself a moment of reflection. He'd learned early in life that understanding human nature meant accepting its darkest impulses. Tomorrow would prove whether those lessons had taught him enough to orchestrate the perfect revenge. Chapter 3: The Airport. O'Hare International Airport buzzed with its usual morning chaos, harried travelers rushing to gates, emotional reunions at arrivals, security lines snaking through the terminal. Mason positioned himself near the international check-in counters, watching Diana wheel her designer luggage toward the Maldives Airlines desk. The Louis Vuitton suitcase set had appeared in their closet 2 months ago. A gift from a grateful patient's family, Diana had claimed, spinning another strand in her web of lies. Now she rolled it with practiced ease, her Prada heels clicking against the terminal floor as she approached Marcus Thompson. Mason observed their greeting from behind his newspaper. Marcus's muscled arm slid around Diana's waist with familiar possessiveness. They laughed together over something on Diana's phone, heads bent close, already lost in their private world. The sight might have wounded him once. Now he noticed only the details that would matter later. How Diana's hand trembled slightly as she handed over her passport. The way Marcus kept glancing around the terminal, the thickness of the envelope he passed to the check-in agent along with their travel documents. Mason waited until they'd finished checking their bags before making his approach. The moment required perfect timing. Too soon would seem suspicious, too late would miss the impact. He counted to 30, folded his newspaper, and walked toward the check-in counter. "What's going on?" he asked, injecting just the right note of confusion into his voice. The hundreds of hostage negotiations he'd handled had taught him exactly how to modulate his tone for maximum effect. Diana turned, her designer sunglasses failing to hide her startled expression. For a fraction of a second, he saw uncertainty flicker across her face before it hardened into cold determination. "Oh, Mason," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You just needed to pay, that's all. That's all you ever were. A convenient checkbook." Marcus stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full height. The fitness mobile's tailored suit couldn't quite hide the steroids-enhanced bulk beneath. "Thanks for funding our honeymoon, loser." Their laughter echoed through the terminal. They expected to see pain, betrayal, devastation in Mason's eyes. Instead, he glanced at the departure board, noting flight MV 789 to Male, Maldives, his face carefully neutral. Behind Diana and Marcus, Dr. Rachel Chun wheeled her own luggage toward a different check-in counter, her medical journal providing perfect cover for her occasional glances in their direction. 2 gates over, an FBI agent posing as a businessman spoke quietly into his phone. Near the currency exchange, Mason's private investigator pretended to study exchange rates while his camera captured everything. "You really think you've won?" Mason asked softly. The question meant more for himself than them. "We already have," Diana sneered, adjusting her Hermes scarf. Another gift she claimed came from a patient. "Enjoy your empty house and your pathetic little police salary. Marcus and I are headed for a better life." Mason watched them walk toward security, noting how Diana's hand clutched Marcus's arm just a bit too tightly, how Marcus's swagger held a hint of nervousness. They didn't notice the customs agent's slight nod to Mason, or how their passports would trigger a secondary screening. "Sir," a voice behind him made Mason turn. Captain Williams stood there, concern etched on his weathered face. "I followed you in dispatch, said you called in sick. Are you okay?" Mason let his shoulders slump, displaying the appropriate level of emotional distress. I had to see for myself, Cap. Had to know if it was real." "Come on," Williams said, placing a fatherly hand on his shoulder. "Let me buy you a coffee. No one should go through this alone." As they walked toward the airport cafe, Mason caught Sophia's eye across the terminal. She sat at a corner table, her laptop open to what appeared to be travel blogs, but was actually running sophisticated tracking software. She gave him an imperceptible nod. Everything was proceeding according to plan. In the cafe, Williams launched into a well-meaning speech about time healing all wounds, about how Mason would find someone better, about how the department would support him through this difficult period. Mason accepted the platitudes with apparent gratitude, playing his role to perfection. "I think I need some time," he said, staring into his untouched coffee. "Maybe a leave of absence." "Of course," Williams agreed quickly. "Take all the time you need. No one would blame you after what she did." Through the cafe's window, Mason watched Diana and Marcus pass through the first security checkpoint. Dr. Chun followed several passengers behind, her medical credentials ensuring smooth passage. The FBI agents had already cleared security through a separate line. On the surface, Diana and Marcus saw exactly what they expected to see: a broken man watching his wife leave with another, too devastated to even fight back. They never noticed the web closing around them, the dozens of carefully placed threads that would soon pull tight and destroy everything they'd built. Mason's phone buzzed with a text from his private investigator, all evidence documented, video and photos uploading to secure server. Another message followed from Dr. Chun, through security, maintaining visual contact. Sophia's message was shorter: "It's time." Mason stood, thanking Captain Williams for his support. He walked slowly toward the exit, maintaining his facade of dejection. Behind him, flight MV 789 to Male, Maldives began its boarding process. Diana and Marcus would spend the 9-hour flight celebrating their victory, planning their new life together, never suspecting they were flying straight into an elaborate trap. Outside O'Hare, Mason sat in his car and made one final call to confirm all pieces were in position. Then he drove home to his empty house, knowing it would be the last night he'd have to pretend to be the victim in this carefully orchestrated game. Diana and Marcus thought they were escaping to paradise. Instead, they'd just taken the first step toward their own destruction. Mason allowed himself a small smile as he walked into his house. The real game was about to begin. Chapter 4: Pieces in Motion. The Maldivian sun beat down on Diana and Marcus as they lounged by their private villa's infinity pool, unaware of the storm gathering back in Chicago. Mason sat in his dimly lit home office, coordinating the complex web of players he'd assembled. Sophia Thompson's voice crackled through a speakerphone. "The social media campaign launches in an hour. Are you sure about the timing?" "They'll be at dinner," Mason replied, checking the schedule Dr. Chin had sent. "Phones off, enjoying their romantic meal." By the time they check their notifications, it'll be too late to contain the damage. Sophia's fingers clicked across her keyboard. First wave ready. Old family photos showing dad's true nature, court document from mom's case, testimonials from other rich men's abandoned children. I've lined up 3 influencers to share their stories of elite performance's darker side. How's the hashtag looking? Hashtag Elite Performance Truth is already trending in Chicago. Dad's PR team won't know what hit them. Mason pulled up his own monitors, each displaying a different aspect of his plan. His foster care network had located 3 more of Marcus's illegitimate children, each with their own story of abandonment and destruction. Marcus's first wife, living under an assumed name in Seattle, had provided a devastating account of his psychological torture and financial ruin. A message popped up from his contact at the mental institution where Marcus's former business partner resided. Patient coherent today, willing to provide video testimony about Thompson's involvement in athlete deaths. Another alert. His private investigator had uncovered the full scope of the prescription drug ring operating through Elite Performance. The documentation showed a clear path from Diana's prescriptions to Marcus's private clients. Sophia, Mason said, time to activate Phase 2. Release the financial records. That'll hurt him. It's supposed to. While Sophia worked, Mason placed a call to Victoria Thompson, Marcus's current wife. Their coffee meeting the previous week had yielded unexpected dividends. The charity board meets tomorrow, Victoria reported. Once they see the evidence of his money laundering, they'll have no choice but to go public. My lawyers are ready with the civil suit. What about the Cayman accounts? All documented, including his plans to frame me for embezzlement. Victoria's laugh held no humor. He really should have checked who else had access to those records. Mason ended the call and opened his secure messaging app. Dr. Chin's updates from the Maldives painted a picture of 2 people drunk on their own success. Diana and Marcus openly displaying affection at resort restaurants. Both taking restricted medications without prescriptions. Detailed conversations about their wellness center plans. Multiple calls to potential investors. Discussions of their medical tourism scheme. He switched screens to monitor the pressure points being applied to Marcus's business empire. Health inspectors arriving unannounced at Elite Performance locations. Key employees receiving lucrative offers from competitors. Tax auditors launching random reviews. Building code violations being reported at his properties. Local sports reporters investigating athlete deaths. Sarah Bennett, his partner, sent an encrypted file. You need to see this. Just intercepted communications between Thompson and known drug suppliers. DA's very interested. Mason forwarded the file to his FBI contact. Another piece falling into place. His phone buzzed. Captain Williams checking on him. How you holding up, Reed? Taking it day by day, Cap. Thanks for the leave time. Listen, the department psychologist wants to see you. Standard procedure after, well, you know. Of course. I'll set up an appointment. Mason smiled as he hung up. The department psychiatrist was already part of his plan, documenting Diana's pattern of emotional abuse and Marcus's escalating threats. Each session built another layer of protection around him. A notification from his banking app. Diana had just attempted to access their joint accounts. Mason had already moved most funds to hidden accounts, leaving just enough to maintain appearances. He watched as she transferred the remaining balance to an offshore account. His home security system pinged. The camera showed 2 men in hoodies approaching his front door, Marcus's usual intimidation tactics. Mason activated his phone's recording function as they began pounding on the door. Police! Step away from the door. The thug scattered at Sarah's command. She'd been watching from an unmarked car, building evidence of harassment. Got all on video, she texted, adding it to the file. Mason returned to monitoring Sophia's social media campaign. The hashtag had exploded, with hundreds sharing stories of abuse, fraud, and destruction at Marcus's hands. Elite Performance's carefully crafted image crumbled under the onslaught of truth. A message from his hospital contact. Diana's patient records showed disturbing patterns of lost medications and unauthorized access to restricted areas. The medical board would require a full investigation. Sir, Mason's private investigator called. You should know, Mrs. Reed just tried accessing the Wellness Center account. When she couldn't, she called 3 board members in a panic. And they denied knowing anything about the project, said they never approved any plans. Mason leaned back, visualizing Diana's reaction. She'd be realizing now that her carefully constructed exit strategy was built on quicksand. Marcus's promises of board approval and investor support were as empty as his claims of love. Sophia's voice broke through his thoughts. Dad's lawyers are scrambling. They've called 3 emergency meetings in the last hour. Keep pushing. Don't give them time to regroup. Mason pulled up the surveillance feeds from elite performance locations. Clients were leaving in droves, phones pressed to their ears as they called their lawyers. Marcus's empire was bleeding out, one canceled membership at a time. His secure phone lit up with a message from Dr. Chun. They're fighting. Diana just discovered the Wellness Center investors don't exist. Marcus blamed her for not securing hospital backing first. Paradise was already showing cracks. Mason opened his laptop and began typing his daily report. Each action, reaction, and consequence was documented. This wasn't just revenge. It was the systematic dismantling of 2 people who thought they could play him for a fool. Victoria Thompson called again. The charity board voted. They're turning everything over to the SEC. How's Marcus taking it? He doesn't know yet. Too busy playing honeymoon with his mistress to notice his real wife destroying him. Mason checked his watch. By now, Diana and Marcus would be receiving frantic calls from their lawyers. Their phones would be overflowing with notifications about trending hashtags and launched investigations. Their perfect escape was transforming into a trap. Sophia, he said, ready for phase 3? Hit me. Release the recordings. All of them. Across Chicago, evidence of Marcus and Diana's conspiracy flooded secure servers. Security footage showing their secret meetings. Recorded conversations about patient data sales. Documentation of prescription fraud. Evidence of medical license violations. Proof of planned embezzlement. Mason's trap had sprung perfectly. Each attempt by Diana and Marcus to contain the damage only entangled them further in his web. Their paradise had become a prison, and Mason held all the keys. Chapter 5. The Return. The arrivals terminal at O'Hare International Airport hummed with activity as Flight MV 789 from Maldives taxied to its gate. Mason watched through the security feed as Diana and Marcus emerged from customs, their designer luggage now bearing the signs of a thorough inspection. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Reed, the customs agent said, her voice professionally neutral. Please step aside for additional screening. Diana clutched her Hermes bag closer. There must be some mistake. We've already been cleared in mail. Standard procedure, ma'am. Please follow me. Mason switched camera feeds to observe their separate interrogation rooms. Diana's practiced composure cracked as agents questioned her about undeclared medications. In the adjacent room, Marcus's demands for his lawyer were met with calm questions about offshore transfers. Sir, a junior agent approached Mason's observation position. We found these in their luggage. Mason examined the documents, plans for the Wellness Center, bank statements showing massive transfers, a USB drive containing patient data. Each item another nail in their coffin. Outside the airport, reporters gathered as news of the elite performance scandal broke. Mason's phone buzzed with updates. 3 civil suits filed against Marcus. Diana's medical license suspended pending investigation. Their Wellness Center location rezoned for residential use. All elite performance accounts frozen. Major news outlets running exposés. Sarah Bennett coordinated with FBI agents as they executed search warrants at elite performance locations. You won't believe what we're finding, Mason. Performance-enhancing drugs, patient records, evidence of blackmail. This goes deeper than we thought. Mason maintained his role as the devastated husband perfectly. He arrived at the airport appearing disheveled and concerned, playing the part of a man still hoping to save his marriage. Diana, he called out as they emerged from customs. Let me help. Whatever's happening, we can face it together. Her face contorted with fury. You did this. Somehow, you orchestrated all of this. Marcus pushed forward, his muscle-bound frame tense for violence. Two TSA officers stepped between them, hands on their weapons. Sir, please step back. Mason raised his hands in apparent surrender. I just want to help my wife. Their lawyers arrived in an anxious flurry of expensive suits and urgent whispers. Mason watched Diana's expression shift from anger to fear as her attorney detailed the extent of the investigations. Your medical license is suspended, the lawyer explained. The board cited evidence of prescription fraud and patient data theft. They're scheduling an emergency hearing. Marcus's lawyer painted an equally grim picture. The SEC is involved now. Your accounts are frozen. The charity board has turned over evidence of money laundering and these wrongful death suits from former clients' families. Diana's composure finally shattered. This is impossible. We had protection. You promised we had protection. Protection? Marcus snarled. You're the one who botched the hospital backing. Now everything's falling apart because you couldn't handle your end. Mason drifted to the edge of the chaos, observing as their partnership dissolved under pressure. Dr. Chun approached, maintaining her cover as a concerned colleague. Diana, she said, the hospital board is meeting tomorrow. They want you to testify about the missing medications. The color drained from Diana's face. Rachel? You too. I had to report it, Diana. It's my ethical obligation. Mason's phone vibrated. Sophia, confirming that new evidence had been uploaded to the FBI servers. Surveillance footage showed Diana accessing restricted hospital areas. Marcus meeting with known drug suppliers, both of them destroying documents at elite performance. Victoria Thompson's lawyers served Marcus with divorce papers right there in the terminal. The reporters outside caught his reaction on camera, the famous fitness guru lunging at process servers while shouting threats. Diana stood alone in the midst of the storm, her designer outfit and perfect makeup incongruous with her crumbling world. She turned to Mason, realization dawning in her eyes. You planned this. All of it. The vacation, the timing, everything. Mason met her gaze calmly. Everyone has a breaking point, Diana. You just need to know where to push. He walked away as FBI agents approached with warrant folders. Behind him, he heard Diana's indignant protests turn to sobs as the full weight of her situation became clear. Captain Williams waited by the exit. Hell of a scene in there. You okay? Getting there, Cap. Mason loosened his tie. Think I might need a few more days off, though. Take all the time you need. Williams hesitated. The department psychiatrist mentioned you've been documenting everything. Smart move. Just trying to protect myself. Mason drove home through Chicago's evening traffic, fielding calls from his various pieces still in play. Sophia reported that Marcus's remaining allies were abandoning him. Victoria confirmed the charity board had voted to cooperate fully with investigators. Sarah detailed the evidence collected from elite performance rates. His house felt different now. No longer a museum of lies, but a command center for justice. Mason poured himself a drink and opened his laptop to review the day's developments. Diana and Marcus had returned expecting to continue their perfect deception. Instead, they found their world demolished, their allies turned against them, their dreams reduced to evidence in federal investigations. And this was just the beginning. Chapter 6, Counterattack. Diana paced the length of her luxury hotel suite, her Louboutin heels marking an angry rhythm on the carpet. Marcus sprawled on the sofa, his usual confident demeanor replaced by barely contained rage. There has to be something we can use against him, Diana snapped, scrolling through her phone. No one's as perfect. Mason has to have weaknesses. Marcus slammed his fist on the coffee table. My investigators found nothing. Just his perfect record as a hostage negotiator and that foster care background he uses to play the sympathy card. The foster care. Diana, stop pacing. That's it. We can use that. Paint him as unstable, traumatized by his childhood. Make it look like he's having a breakdown and imagining conspiracies. She grabbed her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard as she accessed her hospital's record system. Years of marriage to Mason had given her his passwords, his patterns. Within minutes, she had what she needed. "Look at this," she said, turning the screen toward Marcus. "He saw the department psychiatrist 3 times last week. We can work with that." Marcus leaned forward, his business instincts surfacing. "My media contact can spin this." Troubled cop invents conspiracy theories about successful businessman. Society loves tearing down heroes. They worked through the night, crafting their counterattack. Diana focused on destroying Mason's credibility. Released edited recordings of their arguments. Filed a detailed police report alleging emotional abuse. Claimed he'd stalked her at the hospital. Submitted a request for a restraining order. Attempted to access his sealed foster care records. Marcus deployed his considerable resources. Hired private investigators to follow Mason. Threatened Dr. Chen's medical career. Approached police officials with bribes. Released dirt about Mason's foster care past. Called in favors from political connections. Their joint strategy took shape in urgent whispers and frantic phone calls. Fabricated evidence suggesting Mason's mental instability. Claimed police harassment of elite performance. Attacked his professional reputation. Threatened to expose alleged police corruption. Planned to frame him for evidence tampering. "We need to hit his support network too," Marcus growled, hanging up from another call with his lawyers. "This Dr. Chen seems to be a weak point." Diana nodded, remembering how Rachel had betrayed her at the airport. "I know exactly which buttons to push there." One call to the medical board about her history of prescription errors. "My people can arrange some pressure too. Maybe her apartment needs a break-in, just to remind her what side she should be on." They expanded their targets. Dr. Chun received death threats in her hospital mailbox. Sophia's Seattle apartment suffered mysterious vandalism. Victoria's charity faced sudden tax audits. Sarah Bennett's teenage son was followed home from school. Mason's foster siblings reported job difficulties. The conflict escalated rapidly. Marcus's employees ambushed Mason outside his home, recording the confrontation. Diana leaked confidential patient information, trying to create a scandal. Their lawyers filed multiple harassment suits, hoping to drown Mason in legal fees. "We're missing something," Diana muttered, staring at her evidence wall. Hotel stationery covered with notes and connections surrounded a photo of Mason. "He's always 10 steps ahead." "How?" Marcus paced behind her, his muscled frame tight with tension. "My tech team found traces in our systems. He's been planning this for months. Those offshore accounts? He set them up in our names. The wellness center lease? He owns the building through a shell company. The prescription records." Diana's voice trailed off as realization hit. Rachel wasn't just reporting me. She was collecting evidence all along. Mason turned her months ago. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. News alerts about Marcus attempting to leave the country. Diana rushed to check their emergency accounts, finding them all frozen. "How did he?" Marcus started. "Because he knew we'd do exactly this," Diana interrupted. "He knew we'd try to run, try to fight back. He's been feeding us just enough rope to hang ourselves." A knock at their hotel room door made them both jump. A bellhop delivered an envelope containing photos. Them meeting at Elite Performance, their hotel rendezvous, their plans for the wellness center. Each image time-stamped, documented, perfect for a criminal investigation. Diana sank onto the sofa, her designer outfit wrinkled from hours of stress. "He played us, Marcus. All this time, we thought we were so clever, so careful. But Mason, he was always the better manipulator." Marcus's phone rang, his lawyer again. The conversation was brief, but devastating. "They found the surveillance footage from the gym," Marcus said after hanging up. "Athletes being given unauthorized treatments, prescriptions being filled, everything. They're calling it a criminal enterprise. My hospital access codes were used to access patient records last night," Diana added, checking her emails. "But I was here with you. Mason's making it look like we're still actively committing crimes." A text message lit up Diana's phone. A video of her meeting with Marcus at Elite Performance, discussing their plans to frame Victoria for embezzlement. She hadn't noticed Dr. Chun in the background, apparently focused on her phone, but actually recording everything. We need to separate, Marcus said suddenly. Each defend ourselves. This partnership, it's a liability now. Diana's laugh held an edge of hysteria. Separate? You think that's even possible now? Mason has linked us together in everything. The prescriptions, the wellness center, the offshore accounts. It's all connected. Their phones buzzed again. Breaking news about elite performance athletes testing positive for banned substances. The reporters were already connecting it to Diana's prescription patterns. Marcus grabbed his jacket. I need to handle this. My lawyers. Your lawyers are already talking to the FBI. Diana interrupted, holding up her tablet. Check your email. They're offering deals to whoever talks first. The room fell silent as they absorbed the implications. Everything they'd built, all their careful plans, were unraveling faster than they could react. Each counterattack had only entangled them further in Mason's web. Diana's medical license suspension notice arrived by courier. Overnight delivery ensuring she couldn't ignore it. Marcus's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications about elite performance locations being raided by federal agents. The psychiatric angle failed, Diana muttered, scrolling through news reports. Mason's department evaluations paint him as completely stable. He used those sessions to document everything we did to him. Marcus slumped in his chair. My political connections won't return my calls. Victoria's lawyers are demanding access to all the charity's records. The board members, they're all talking to investigators. A final text message arrived from an unknown number. Surveillance footage of their airport departure, multiple angles showing their confident dismissal of Mason. Their own words echoed back. Thanks for funding our honeymoon, loser. Diana stood on shaky legs and walked to the window. Below, news vans gathered in the hotel parking lot. Their faces were already splashed across every local channel. The corrupt doctor and her criminal lover, their empire crumbling in real time. He never lost control, she whispered. Not for a moment. While we were celebrating our escape, he was just waiting, watching us choose our own destruction. Marcus's phone rang one last time. His expression crumpled as he listened. What now? Diana asked. Sophia, he said, his voice hollow. She's going public with everything. My ex-wife, the other children, all of it. She's been working with Mason from the start. Diana turned back to the window, watching more reporters arrive. Their counteroffensive had failed completely. Each attack had backfired. Each threat had been anticipated. Each move had been turned against them. Mason hadn't just outplayed them. He'd made them instruments of their own downfall. In her pocket, her phone buzzed with another news alert. She didn't need to read it. She already knew. Somewhere in Chicago, Mason Reed was watching everything unfold exactly as he'd planned. Chapter 7. The Final Pieces. The Federal Detention Center's interview room buzzed with fluorescent lights as Marcus Thompson's former personal trainer, James Rodriguez, leaned forward in his orange jumpsuit. His muscled frame had shrunk during his 3 months in custody, but his eyes held steady as he spoke to the FBI agents. I'm ready to talk about the deaths, Rodriguez said, glancing at his lawyer. All of them. 6 hours later, Rodriguez was found unresponsive in his cell. The security footage showed a brief visit from a man matching Marcus's description, wearing a guard's uniform. Toxicology reports revealed traces of substances normally found in elite performance supplements. Mason studied the footage in his temporary office at the FBI Task Force headquarters. He got sloppy, he said to Sarah Bennett. Desperation makes people take risks. Prison guard uniforms aren't hard to fake, Sarah replied, spreading crime scene photos across the desk. But the timing, Rodriguez dies right before his official statement. Marcus didn't know Rodriguez had already given a sealed deposition. Mason tapped his keyboard, bringing up encrypted files. Everything's documented. The tainted supplements, the covered-up deaths, the bribes to medical examiners. A knock at the door interrupted them. Agent Shun from the DEA entered, carrying a thick file. You need to see this. Diana's medical misconduct goes deeper than we thought. The evidence painted a disturbing picture. Patient deaths linked to unauthorized treatments. Insurance fraud schemes at multiple hospitals. Prescription drug ring operating through elite performance. experimental procedures performed without consent, falsified medical records covering it all. Mason's phone lit up with messages. Sophia reporting new victims coming forward. Victoria sharing charity fraud documentation. Dr. Chun uncovering more tampered hospital records. Sarah tracking Marcus's prison visit. FBI teams executing new search warrants. Their business empire's finished, Sarah said, reviewing the latest reports. Elite Performance's supplement line got recalled. The Wellness Center investors pulled out when the medical board investigation went public. Agent Chen nodded. DEA's raiding the remaining locations now. We found storage rooms full of restricted medications, all traceable to Diana's prescriptions. Mason's strategic placement of allies had paid off perfectly. Sophia's nationwide campaign had gathered momentum. Abuse victims sharing their stories. Athletes speaking out about dangerous treatments. Medical professionals reporting misconduct. Media coverage reaching international outlets. Congressional committees announcing investigations. Dr. Chen's evidence proved devastating. Security footage from hospital-restricted areas. Recovered deleted medical records. Testimony from intimidated staff members. Pharmacy audit trails showing patterns. Patient witnesses coming forward. Victoria's exposure of the charity scam revealed. Complex money laundering operations. Board members admitting to bribes. International accounts hiding millions. Political payoffs documented. Tax fraud schemes uncovered. Mason's own apparent breakdown had masked his role in the investigation. Psychiatric sessions recording Diana's abuse. Documentation of Marcus's threats. Evidence of witness intimidation. Proof of murder attempts. Details of their criminal enterprise. The FBI's involvement emerged publicly. Mason's undercover operation revealed. Federal surveillance authorized. International cooperation secured. Criminal network mapped. Prosecution cases prepared. Sarah entered with another update. Rodriguez's deposition is being unsealed tomorrow. His death kicked everything into high gear. How's Marcus taking the news? Mason asked. His lawyers try to cut a deal. Offered to testify against Diana. Mason smiled. And Diana? Meeting with prosecutors right now. Trying to paint herself as Marcus's victim. Agent Chen's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up. Diana just offered a full confession. She's naming names. Doctors involved in the prescription ring, officials who took bribes, athletes who died from the treatments. Marcus won't take that well, Sarah observed. He's not supposed to, Mason replied. That's why Diana's confession is being leaked to him right now. The prison surveillance team reported in. Marcus demanding phone access. Threats against Diana recorded. Violent outbursts documented. Attempt to contact associates. Plans for retaliation captured. Mason gathered his team for the final phase. They're both desperate now. Watch for last-minute moves. Diana's medical license revocation arrived formally. All hospital privileges suspended. Insurance contracts canceled. DEA registration revoked. State board sanctions imposed. International medical alerts issued. Elite Performance crumbled simultaneously. Locations shuttered nationwide. Assets frozen by court order. Employees facing charges. Client lawsuits filed. Brand name toxic. The charity investigation expanded. Tax fraud charges filed. Board members indicted. International accounts seized. Political connections exposed. Complex schemes revealed. Mason's phone rang. Sophia updating him on the public reaction. Dad's former clients are all talking now. Athletes, celebrities, politicians. No one wants to be connected to him anymore. Keep the pressure on, Mason instructed. We need full exposure. Diana's desperate call to her lawyers was intercepted, attempting to shift blame, offering new evidence, claiming coercion, revealing murder plots, betraying conspirators. Marcus retaliated from prison, threatening messages sent, hidden evidence exposed, past crimes revealed, compromising videos released, witness intimidation attempted. The prosecution's cases solidified, RICO charges prepared, international warrants issued, asset forfeiture processed, witness protection arranged, plea deals offered. Professional consequences mounted. Medical licenses permanently revoked. Business empire dismantled. Real estate holdings seized. Professional associations banned. Industry blacklisting implemented. Mason watched the final pieces fall into place. Diana and Marcus had started their journey believing they were escaping to paradise. Instead, they'd walked into a trap that had stripped them of everything: wealth, status, freedom, and finally, each other. Chapter 8. No Escape. Diana's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel of her Mercedes, speeding toward Chicago Executive Airport. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications about Marcus's prison rampage after learning of her confession. The private jet waited on the tarmac, fueled and ready. She'd paid cash, used a false name, filed a flight plan to Canada. The pilot assured her they could be airborne in minutes. Going somewhere, Diana screamed. Mason sat in the back seat, appearing as if by magic. How did you get in? You never changed the keyless entry code. He leaned forward. The pilot works for us, by the way, along with the flight crew, ground staff, and air traffic controllers. She slammed on the brakes, but Mason was ready. I wouldn't. SWAT teams are positioned at both exits. FBI agents cover the perimeter. Your passport's already flagged internationally. Diana's designer purse held a small fortune in diamonds, her emergency escape fund. What do you want? Just to watch. Your confession hit the news an hour ago. Marcus is being charged with Rodriguez's murder. The DA's adding attempted flight to avoid prosecution to your charges. Her phone rang. Marcus's prison call. Mason nodded. Go ahead. Answer it. It's being recorded anyway. You backstabbing witch. Marcus's voice filled the car. They're charging me with murder because of you. You killed Rodriguez. What was I supposed to do? I'm going to tell them everything. The patients you killed testing those treatments. The athletes who died from your prescriptions. All of it. Diana's face drained of color. You can't prove. Your signatures on all the orders. Your access codes open to restricted areas. I made sure everything traced back to you. Mason watched Diana's composure crack. He's right, you know. Marcus documented everything, thinking it was insurance against you betraying him. Now it's evidence for the prosecution. She ended the call, hands shaking. Through the windshield, she could see police lights approaching. It's over, Diana, Mason said quietly. Your assets are frozen. The wellness center property's been seized. Even your offshore accounts are locked. You did this. All of it. No. You and Marcus did this. I just made sure you couldn't hide it anymore. Federal agents surrounded the car. Diana's phone buzzed one last time. Her lawyer warning that any attempt to flee would destroy her chance for a plea deal. Why? She whispered. You could have just divorced me. Mason opened his door as Agent Chin approached. Because people like you and Marcus need to learn. Sometimes the predators become prey. At the federal courthouse, Marcus faced the judge for his arraignment. His designer suit had been replaced by prison orange, his confident swagger reduced to shuffling feet. Your Honor, his lawyer began, my client wishes to cooperate fully. By throwing me under the bus? Diana's voice rang out from the gallery. After you promised we'd face this together? Marcus spun around. You betrayed me first, running to the prosecutors with your lies. Order. The judge's gavel cracked. Remove Mrs. Reed from my courtroom. Mason watched from his position near the door as Diana was escorted out, still hurling accusations at Marcus. Their perfect partnership had dissolved into mutual destruction. Sarah appeared at his side. That was quite a show. They're not acting anymore, Mason replied. The masks are off. Federal cases are solid, Sarah reported. RICO charges, international warrants, asset forfeiture. It's all proceeding. Even found some charges that could stick in countries without extradition. Mason's phone vibrated. Sophia, sending video of protests outside elite performance locations. Victoria's message followed, confirming the charity board had voted to cooperate fully with investigators. The evidence mounted hourly. Marcus's prison visit footage released. Diana's patient deaths documented. Offshore accounts traced. Witness intimidation proven. Murder conspiracy exposed. Their desperate final moves backfired spectacularly. Diana's escape attempt captured on video. Marcus's prison calls recorded. Hidden evidence discovered. Mutual betrayals documented. Criminal enterprise exposed. The federal cases expanded. RICO indictments filed. International alerts issued. Asset seizures completed. Witness protection implemented. Plea negotiations started. Professional destruction followed. Medical careers ended. Business empires dismantled. Licenses permanently revoked. Professional reputations ruined. Industry bans implemented. Mason left the courthouse as reporters swarmed the entrance. Behind him, Diana and Marcus's world continued to implode, their accusations and betrayals ensuring neither would see freedom again. Chapter 9. Sweet Revenge. The small-town medical clinic sat at the edge of nowhere, its faded sign advertising basic services for the local farming community. Mason parked his FBI vehicle and watched Diana emerge from her shift. 5 years had changed her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by practical scrubs. Her practiced smile looked brittle as she walked toward the bus stop, shoulders hunched against the weight of monitoring anklets and restricted licenses. She spotted him and froze. Mason saw the flash of hatred in her eyes before she turned away. The transformation of her life satisfied something deep in his soul. 15-year federal sentence served. Medical practice strictly supervised. Assets forfeited to victims. Professional reputation destroyed. Future prospects eliminated. Marcus wrote desperate letters from prison, begging for reconsideration, offering new information, claiming redemption, seeking reduced sentences, pleading for mercy. Their separate fates reflected perfect justice. Careers permanently ruined. Wealth completely stripped. Reputations irreparably damaged. Social status eliminated. Freedom severely restricted. Mason's own life had transformed dramatically. FBI task force leadership position. Marriage to Sarah Bennett. International consulting career. Best-selling book series. Victim advocacy program. The systematic changes sparked by the case. Medical oversight increased. Gym regulations strengthened. Fraud detection improved. Victim protection enhanced. Legal reforms implemented. His phone buzzed, Sarah reminding him about their dinner plans. Their marriage, built on trust and shared values, felt like karma's gift, replacing his toxic past with a healthy future. Sophia had found peace too, channeling her pain into purpose, running victim support programs, advocating for legal reforms, counseling other survivors, building support networks, creating lasting change. The case's impact rippled outward. Similar schemes exposed. Criminal networks dismantled. Professional standards raised. Public awareness increased. Systemic changes implemented. Mason drove away from the clinic, leaving Diana to her diminished life. His victory wasn't just revenge, it was transformation. The foster child who learned to read people had become a force for justice, turning personal betrayal into positive change. His new reality included everything Diana and Marcus had craved: genuine success and influence, healthy relationships and trust, meaningful positive impact, professional recognition, personal fulfillment. Their honeymoon had indeed changed lives forever, just not how they planned. Mason smiled as he headed home to Sarah, knowing his greatest revenge was living well while Diana and Marcus lived with the consequences of their choices. The story's final irony lay in its simplicity. Diana and Marcus thought they were the predators, never realizing they were always the prey. Their own arrogance, greed, and betrayal had guided them perfectly into Mason's trap, ensuring their permanent downfall. Mason's phone lit up with a message from Sophia. Another victim support group launching, another life changed, another step toward healing. He typed a quick response before turning toward home, leaving the past firmly behind. The game was over. Checkmate had been achieved, and justice, in all its perfect symmetry, had been served. Epilogue. 10 years later. Mason Reed stood at the podium in Harvard Law School's largest auditorium, facing a sea of eager faces. His latest book, Predators and Prey, Inside the Elite Performance Case, had become required reading in criminal justice programs across the country. The key to understanding complex criminal enterprises, he explained to the assembled students, isn't just following the money. It's understanding the psychology behind the crimes. Diana and Marcus thought they were master manipulators. Their fatal flaw was believing their own lies. A student raised her hand. Mr. Reed, how did your experience in foster care influence your approach to the case? Mason considered the question carefully. Growing up in 12 different homes taught me to read people's true intentions. When you're constantly moving, constantly adapting, you learn to spot patterns. Diana and Marcus followed classic predator patterns. They just didn't expect to become prey themselves. After the lecture, Sarah Bennett Reed waited in the hallway, their twin daughters Emma and Sophie bouncing with excitement beside her. At 8 years old, they were bundles of energy and curiosity, inheriting their parents' sharp minds and determination. "Daddy," Sophie called out, "did you tell them about the bad people?" Mason hugged his daughters close. "I told them about justice, sweetheart, about making sure bad choices have consequences." Sarah smiled, her FBI badge catching the light. Her promotion to Assistant Director of the Criminal Investigative Division had come through last month, recognition for her role in developing new protocols for investigating medical fraud based on the elite performance case. "The girls want to show you something," she said. "They've been practicing all day." Emma pulled out a carefully folded paper. "We made a chart like yours, Daddy, about cause and effect." Mason examined their childish handwriting, his heart swelling. His daughters understood justice in their own way, already showing signs of the same dedication to right and wrong that had driven their parents' careers. His phone buzzed, Sophia Thompson calling. 10 years had transformed her from a wounded victim to a powerful advocate. Her nationwide foundation, Phoenix Rising, helped children of white-collar criminals rebuild their lives. "Mason," Sophia said when he answered, "we just got the funding approved. 10 new support centers opening next year." "That's incredible, Sophia. How many does that make now?" 32 across the country, each one named after a victim of elite crimes. She paused. Dad tried writing again. Marcus Thompson's letters arrived, monthly now, sent from the maximum security prison where he'd spend the rest of his life. The death of his former trainer, combined with the other charges, had ensured he'd never taste freedom again. Still claiming redemption? Mason asked. "Always. This time he included a letter for my kids." Sophia's laugh held no bitterness now, only peace. "They're 12 and 14 now, older than I was when he abandoned me." They read his letters as case studies for their psychology classes. Mason's next call came from Dr. Rachel Chun, now chief of surgery at Chicago Metropolitan and a leading advocate for medical ethics reform. The elite performance case had sparked her passion for preventing medical fraud. "You'll never guess who came through the ER last night," Rachel said. "One of Marcus's former clients. He's writing a book about how elite performance destroyed his athletic career. Wants to know if you'll write the foreword." Mason glanced at his calendar, already filled with speaking engagements and consulting work. His role as special advisor to the FBI's Medical Fraud Task Force kept him busy, but cases like this mattered. "Send him my contact info," he replied. "These stories need to be told." Victoria Thompson had transformed her experience into power. After divorcing Marcus, she'd rebuilt her charity into a legitimate force for good, focusing on supporting victims of financial crimes. Her testimony before Congress had helped pass new regulations for fitness industry oversight. "Mason." Victoria's voice rang with excitement when she called. "The Thompson Act passed the Senate. Full regulatory framework for supplement manufacturing and testing. The law, named ironically after Marcus Thompson's crimes, would prevent others from building empires on dangerous supplements and false promises." Captain Williams, now Police Commissioner Williams, still sought Mason's advice on complex cases. Their weekly lunches had become a tradition, a chance to discuss how the elite performance case had changed law enforcement approaches to white-collar crime. "Remember when I asked how you did it?" Williams mused during their latest meeting. "How you always knew where to push. Now we teach her techniques at the academy." The case's ripple effects had transformed multiple industries. Medical oversight, new protocols for prescription tracking, enhanced scrutiny of private medical practices, regular audits of hospital dispensaries, stricter penalties for prescription fraud, improved patient data protection, fitness industry regulation, mandatory supplement testing, regular facility inspections, background checks for owners, client protection measures, financial transparency requirements, legal system changes, updated RICO application guidelines, strengthened witness protection programs, enhanced evidence collection protocols, improved international cooperation, new sentencing guidelines for medical fraud. Mason's own legacy had grown beyond his expectations. FBI consulting divisions worldwide, university lecture series, training programs for law enforcement, professional development workshops, expert witness services. Sarah's work complemented his perfectly. Specialized investigation units, interagency cooperation protocols, international task force leadership, policy development initiatives, training program oversight. Their family life thrived on shared purpose, teaching their daughters about justice, building strong ethical foundations, encouraging critical thinking, fostering empathy and understanding, creating positive change together. The last pieces of the elite performance saga played out in quiet corners. Diana served her 15-year sentence, earning early release for cooperation. Now she worked under strict supervision at small clinics, her practice limited and monitored. Her attempts to rebuild her life showed in small ways. Modest clothes, public transportation, humble accommodation. The designer lifestyle was gone forever. Mason occasionally received reports about her through official channels. Regular compliance checks, supervised practice reviews, restricted prescription authority, mandatory ethics training, community service requirements. Marcus faced a different fate in prison. Multiple appeals denied, requests for clemency rejected, prison privileges restricted, outside contact limited, hope of release eliminated. Their circle of influence had shattered. Former clients distanced themselves. Business associates denied connections. Social contacts disappeared. Professional networks dissolved. Political allies abandoned them. The victims found various paths to healing. Support group participation, public advocacy work, legal system reform, educational initiatives, community building efforts. Sophia's foundation grew stronger. National recognition received. Political influence expanded. Support services increased. Educational programs developed. Legislative changes achieved. Dr. Chen's medical ethics work flourished. Hospital protocols revised. Training programs implemented. Oversight systems developed. Professional standards raised. Industry practices transformed. Victoria's charitable work evolved. Victim support expanded. Financial education provided. Legal assistance offered. Recovery programs developed. Prevention strategies implemented. The elite performance case became a cornerstone of criminal justice education. Law school curriculum inclusion. Police academy training material. FBI case study programs. Ethics course components. Professional development resources. Mason's latest book tour brought him to Seattle, where he visited Sophia's newest support center. The building's modern design housed state-of-the-art facilities for counseling, education, and rehabilitation. Sometimes I wonder, Sophia admitted as they toured the facility, what Mom would think of all this. How her death led to so much positive change. Mason watched a group of teenagers in the computer lab, children of white-collar criminals learning to forge their own paths. She'd be proud of you, Sophia. You turned pain into purpose. His phone lit up with a message from Sarah. Emma and Sophie had won their school's ethics debate competition. Their topic, the responsibility of power in professional settings. That evening, Mason spoke at a law enforcement conference. The audience included veterans of the elite performance case, newer agents learning from their experience, and international colleagues implementing similar programs. The lesson isn't just about catching criminals, he concluded. It's about understanding that true justice comes from transformation. Diana and Marcus thought they were writing a story of escape and victory. Instead, They became a cautionary tale about hubris and consequences. The next generation of investigators took notes, asking questions about technique and strategy. But Mason knew the real lesson was simpler. Sometimes justice required patience, understanding, and the wisdom to let perpetrators become instruments of their own downfall. Later that night, in his hotel room, Mason reviewed an intelligence report about a new case showing familiar patterns. His phone buzzed with messages from his network. Sarah sharing case connections. Sophia offering victim support. Rachel reporting medical irregularities. Victoria noting financial patterns. Williams requesting consultation. The work continued, evolving with each new challenge. Mason smiled as he began his analysis, knowing that somewhere Diana and Marcus's legacy lived on, not as a story of criminal success, but as a blueprint for justice served. His daughter's chart lay on the desk beside him, their childish writing mapping cause and effect. They understood, even at their young age, that choices had consequences, that justice might take time, but always arrived. Mason sent a quick message to Sarah, "On my way home tomorrow. Tell the girls their chart helped solve another case." The elite performance saga had ended, but its impact continued rippling outward, touching lives, changing systems, protecting future victims. Mason's greatest victory wasn't just bringing down two criminals. It was creating lasting change that would prevent others from following their path. The next morning, he packed his notes and headed to the airport. Another case waited, another story of power and corruption needing exposure. But now he had something he'd never had in those 12 foster homes. A legacy of justice, a network of allies, and a family who understood that sometimes the greatest victories came from letting predators destroy themselves. In his carry-on, Emma and Sophie's chart reminded him of life's simple truths. Their understanding of justice would carry forward, ensuring that long after the elite performance case faded into history, its lessons would continue teaching new generations about the power of patience, the importance of truth, and the ultimate price of betrayal. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.